Naypyidaw, the city that was constructed at a cost of $4 billion in the middle of Myanmar, is a ghost city waiting for people to occupy it. But until now, no one has done so. Why? This is the story of Naypyidaw.
A night in Forest Garden that many now describe as a ghost town.
Naypyidaw was proclaimed the capital of Myanmar in 2006. It occupies a territory of more than 7,000 square kilometers and is a city created from scratch, which was to become a modern and developing capital. The relocation of the capital from Yangon, the largest city in Myanmar and the former capital, to Naypyidaw was done rather unceremoniously and without much justification. The fact that the project was large and shrouded in secrecy from the beginning piqued the interest of the public. The government saw a city that could be a representation of the Myanmar of today and tomorrow. It has broad avenues, large government structures, and a vast network of roads and railways. Naypyidaw was designed to represent the country's dreams. The vision for Naypyidaw was ambitious, to build a city that could symbolize Myanmar's future with modern facilities and magnificent governmental structures. The planners paid much attention to the layout and construction of these buildings to be able to house millions of people and act as the political center of the nation. The city was zoned for certain uses, and the zones were determined by the functions that the city was to serve. The government area includes the parliament, the presidential palace, and other ministries' constructions, which were designed to represent authority and stability. The hotel zone, which offered luxurious facilities, was meant for foreigners and diplomats. On the other hand, residential areas were intended to accommodate decent housing for government officials and their dependents. The infrastructure consisted of extensive roads and avenues with multiple lanes to support the traffic and possible expansion. Naypyidaw boasts impressive features: large avenues, magnificent hotels, and great gardens. It's a city built for millions of people. The Upatasanti Pagoda, which is one of the most famous pagodas in the country, symbolizes the cultural and spiritual goals of the city. This pagoda is a copy of the Shwedagon Pagoda in Yangon, which means that it's a continuation and a sign of respect for the traditions. The city has large avenues, some of them are up to 20 lanes wide. These roads were constructed with the capacity to bear a lot of traffic, and sometimes even military parades. The Parliament complex is another architectural wonder that is designed as a way to symbolize the authority of the government and the sovereignty of Myanmar. Around these government structures are expansive, green and well-maintained lawns, meant to afford the citizens and visitors a scenic place to be. It also has a modern hospital, international standard hotels, and modern shopping malls, all with the aim of making Naypyidaw a city that is fully equipped with modern facilities. The architectural plan of Naypyidaw is spectacular, but the city is still deserted. The city that was planned to accommodate millions now houses only a small fraction of that number. Strolling along its broad avenues and observing the deserted facilities, one cannot help but ask the question, why? The streets are completely empty most of the time, and there's not as much activity as one would expect to see in a capital city. Some of the government buildings are magnificent, but most of them are virtually idle. The residential areas are not densely populated, and the hotel area, which was intended for the hosting of international visitors, is still virtually empty. Companies that set up shop with the expectation of serving a new population ended up suffering because of the absence of pedestrian traffic. The optimism and enthusiasm that people had towards the city are no longer present, but instead, people are now filled with apprehension. The situation is quite far from the idea that was painted at the beginning of the project. The following are some of the reasons why Naypyidaw has become a ghost city. These include geographical factors, political factors, and economic factors. The decision to shift the capital was partly political. In fact, Naypyidaw is more central than Yangon, and hence does not have the same vulnerability to sea invasions as the former. Also, it was seen as a way of addressing traffic congestion in Yangon and boosting development in other parts of Myanmar. However, the remote location has also been a major disadvantage of the site. Naypyidaw is situated in the less developed area and has failed to attract investors and people to the city. This has been due to the fact that there are no economic activities that can attract people to come and settle there. Furthermore, the construction of the city has been done in a very hasty and secretive manner, and this has led to many questions being asked. The majority of the residents are socially excluded from the new capital in both the physical and psychological sense. The economic difficulties that Myanmar has faced have also played a part in this. The country has been relatively sluggish in the process of economic liberalization, and political instability has remained a problem. Hence, the expected economic benefits of the relocation of the capital have not been achieved. The presence of Naypyidaw has consequences for Myanmar in virtually all aspects of life, including the functioning of the government and the country's economic growth. The establishment of Naypyidaw has taken attention and capital away from other areas that could have benefited from such investments. The huge spending on the new capital has raised eyebrows over the right direction and proper utilization of the people's money. Nonetheless, Naypyidaw remains a relatively unused city, but still the administrative center of Myanmar. This has led to centralization of government operations and has had both positive and negative effects. On the one hand, modern infrastructure may be effective in terms of supporting efficient governance. On the other hand, the relative distance from Yangon, which is the economic capital of the country, poses some transportation and accessibility difficulties. The underpopulation of Naypyidaw also implies that most of the city's amenities and structures remain idle, which is a continuous expense without returns. This situation has led to the citizens complaining that the resources could have been used to better improve existing cities or even solve social and economic problems. What will become of Naypyidaw? Can this mega-city ever achieve the vision it has set for itself? Or is it doomed to be an example of what not to do? The government still spends money on Naypyidaw, expecting that more people and companies will move to the new capital. There are attempts to increase the attractiveness of the city, for example, through the construction of new facilities and structures. It's possible to speak about the future development of Naypyidaw as a center for conferences and international meetings, as it has all the necessary conditions and infrastructure. However, significant challenges remain. People do not move to a rural area because of the physical structures, but because of economic factors and social facilities. Infrastructure-related policies to boost the economy and transport links to other regions will be important. The future of Naypyidaw will thus depend on its capacity to incorporate it better into the national and regional economies. This entails solving the political and economic problems that have slowed the development of this sector. If these challenges can be overcome, Naypyidaw may still become the vision of a modern capital city that it's intended to be. Naypyidaw is a symbol of luxury and affluence. Whether it will grow to the intended greatness or remain a city of the dead is still a question that is yet to be answered. Naypyidaw remains an icon of the difficulties and trials that Myanmar has to face on its way to the formation of a stable state. In the center of Myanmar, Naypyidaw remains idle, for inhabitants, for possibilities, and to achieve the purpose it set out to achieve. This city, these avenues, and these buildings are much more than a geographical location. They are the representation of Myanmar's dreams and the path that has to be traveled to achieve them. Do you think that Naypyidaw will ever achieve its goals?